Welcome. Yes, I believe we're live. We're on a completely new platform, and forgive me if we've got this wrong, but I do believe we're live. And welcome to the weekly armchair match reaction. This is your host, Stu Woolley. I have got, I believe it's Kai in the background, so I'm just going to bring him in. I think I know how to do that. Yes. Hiya, Kai. And I've got the returning Marcus with me. So, again, please forgive me. We're on this new platform that we'll do our very best to entertain you during the show. So I've got two great guests with me. I've got Marcus. Good to see you again, Marcus. And I've got Kai. So let's jump straight into it. Marcus, how have you been?
Yeah, I've been good. 3 points is always nice, especially on an early kickoff against a newly promoted side away from home. It's not too much to complain about. Pretty happy this weekend.
Excellent. And Kai, how's Litland?
Yeah, good. The weather has been very good today, so very, very happy about that. And the team which I coach also got a victory today, so
excellent.
Happy days.
Excellent. Well, look, guys, let's jump straight into it. We've got a victory, which is absolutely amazing. A couple of guys in the chats already. Good to see my old mates. Well, I've got it right as well. My old mate Jarvis, good to see you. And Mark Hammers also in the chat saying hi, which is great. So thanks for that. Marcus, let's start with you then. I was speaking to a couple of people during the international break. We're all disappointed, obviously, with the starts of the season that we've had. Nothing seems to have gelled, nothing seems to have bedded in yet. But we saw something a little bit different from the lads today. But did we see something different from Ten Hag? So give us your thoughts, overall thoughts on the game, and what your feelings are about Eric as we are currently.
Yeah, I thought today was honestly going to be a very difficult game. And I thought today would go very differently than it actually did. So the fact that we won 3-0, I mean, the performance, especially in the first half, was questionable, but the result was resounding, and that's very important. So I'm really, really happy with that. And as far as Erik ten Hag is concerned, I don't think he did too much wrong today. In fact, him playing Eriksen and Mainu, I thought was crazy, and I thought it was suicide, but I didn't say anything before the game because I was like, you know what? Knowing Erik ten Hag, this is probably just going to work. And it did, you know. Yes, our midfield got overrun, but what I like is that he tried something different. You know, even though I don't personally agree with dropping Casemiro, he did have a bad game against Liverpool, and I can't fault the manager for trying something different. I've been screaming for him to try something different, even if it's something I don't personally agree with, and he did it. So you can't have your cake and eat it. I think the fact that we played a double pivot instead of playing a 3-1-6 today, because that's what I kind of saw. It looked like Mainu and Kobe were playing. I mean, Mainu and Eriksen were playing together deep in the midfield, and even though one of them would push up occasionally, it looked like they were both trying to shield the back four, which I think is definitely the approach we should be taking, as opposed to having one holding midfielder, especially when the one specialist holding midfielder we have can't really do much on the ball. He can't really be the distributor, you know. There's no one in the team who can actually do that role and be a specialist at it, whilst also having the defensive capabilities and the legs to break up the play and all that stuff. We just don't have those luxury players, you know. So I'm glad Erik ten Hag did something different in that regard. I'm glad that he started Xerxes and Amad, just something different. I'm not really sure if he would be giving Xerxes this game time if Mount was still fit, by the way. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on that. But, you know, hey-ho, we're here now. I thought Xerxes was decent in the second half and parts of the first half. It took him a while to get going, but when he did, his link up with Ahmed, I think, was really good. The only thing with Xerxes is that he really needs to start getting a little bit more clinical, because there's only so many times you can get into good positions, and I can forgive you as a fan. You know, he should have had a brace today if he had, you know, that clinical edge. Other than that, not too much else to talk about. You know, I think obviously we'll get into a lot more as the show goes on, but I'm pretty happy, you know, all things considered, because I'm not going to lie to you guys. I wasn't feeling very optimistic against Southampton. I honestly thought today could go very wrong.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair assessment about Xerxes. I mean, really, he should be sitting on 5 Premier League goals at the moment. Yeah, 2 criminal misses against the Scousers and 2 criminal misses, in my opinion, again today. Guy, great to have you on, pal, as always.
Hey, how's it going, guys? How's it going? Yeah. For me, I think it was a good game. You see, I generally because of the fact that I coach a lot, I always try to take. Well, for me, the most important thing is the second half. It's always, whatever you do in the first half happens, but however you end the game or how you control parts of the second half when the legs are tired, or when you need to actually go for something. For me, those are the important parts. So I think that's where United always lacks. They always lack something in the second half, and the game sort of. It's very rarely that we win a game or finish a game where we are actually on top, and we are pretty much saying, "Ref, please don't blow the whistle." It's not something that happens often for us. So I did like that, and I mean, of course, because Southampton were down to 10 men, then that also makes it a little bit easier to see the game out.
Just before you move on from that, Kai,
Yeah.
the question to that is, you're absolutely right. I mean, it was a despicable challenge anyway. You go knee level against anybody.
Yeah.
In your opinion, and and your from your coaching side, did you really think that having Stevens, I think, wasn't it, that got dismissed? Leaving the pitch would have made any difference to the results anyway. Did you not think we were in control at that point?
You see, and then this is the other thing about a team that is unpredictable like United, right? We know that we are just one small moment, one little thing not going our way, away from 2-2 and 3-2. So this is the perspective I'm coming from saying that we had, for example, Maguire limping for a little bit. We had Eric, Lissandro limping for a little bit, and of course, generally those moments could be punished when there's 11 players on the pitch for Southampton, for example, if they, because we couldn't make another sub for example. So What I'm just saying is we are very prone to either, I call it the curse. So we're very prone to either the dumbest thing happening, like just randomly something bounces over someone slips, and then it's 2-1. And you know that we can't really see out a game when we're now 2-1 away from home, and there's 6 minutes of added time, and then everyone's looking at each other like, "Oh my God, it's happening again!" And heads are down. Bruno's throwing his arms in the air the other side, but you've missed like 10 chances, and then Erik ten Hag probably. I just don't know how United would function if that happens. So we have to see it happen again, right? So I want to see more times that we end the game on the high, because I promise you it's not a lot of times which United ends the game and we feel like, all right, cool. That's why always there's the discourse on Twitter, right, which says United didn't play well. It's generally because of that, the fact that the game just doesn't end in a way in which you're saying, yes, okay, we ended this game properly. It always ends in some sort of a glut of 6 chances from the other side, even though you've dominated the game. But that last 10 minutes, you're like, what in the world is going on? And then before you know it, the shot count was like 8 for the other team. But in 10 minutes, the shot count is 20. And then the entire complexion of the game has changed because someone made a mistake, and then someone took 10 steps back, and then now there's a big gap, and then either Bruno has to do some hero thing. We are very prone to it, right? So that's why I was saying more that the fact that Southampton were down to 10 men, it didn't really show that when we are in those stages, can we see out a game in the correct manner? So we ended up doing it. Yeah, fair enough. And I thought Zirkzee as well was very good. I'm always surprised by his nonchalance, but the fact that the ball sticks, it's a very weird thing. Like, you must be very naturally good with close control and ball control, because a lot of times we haven't had the center forward who is able to spin really quickly. So he's not really interested in a fight. He's not interested. All he's interested is deception, spin. He knows sort of what he's going to do next. If you see Højlund, for example, it's a touch and then a touch backwards, because he's trying to decide, do I want to go right? Do I want to go left? And then the center back is now, and then it's a little bit of a fight. But Zirkzee is a little bit quicker. He knows, all right, this guy over here, I want to play a flick pass over here, or I want to turn him quickly, bang. There was that moment which is going around on Twitter as well, where he gets the ball, takes a turn, and then bangs it quickly. Like, it's the sharpest turn and pass that I've seen a United striker do in a long time. So
yeah,
that's sort of,
turn the pass into Amad.
Exactly, yeah. But it was so sharp, it was so quick. Pa. It's and
lovely.
that's, I mean, he's raised the technique levels to you know, in that context. So I thought that was also good. But like, I have been seeing now since maybe the start of the season is that it's all up to Erik ten Hag to save himself. Like, he has to save himself, because I'll tell you what the difficult thing as fans, we always watch and we say, why is he not doing this? Why is he not doing that? Me as a coach, I know, I've heard it. Once someone tells me to do something, I am absolutely not going to do it. Like, I am 100% deciding that I will not play that 3. You said I must play at 3, so then I'm not going to play it, because if I play it, then I'm going to look weak. Then I'm going to look like my plan is gone. And essentially, it's a little bit like that. So what you'll see is Ten Hag doing something like what he did with Eriksen, and then he'll replace Eriksen with someone, and then it looks like it was something that was part of the plan. It was like some sort of a transition to, and that's what coaches have to do, because they also have some egos, you know. So I just think it's up to him, because he can see the problems. He knows what he needs to do, and I know that Rene Haka and what's his name, Rude, are saying, bro, this over here is not working. Like, this thing here that you're doing, here the problem. And I know that they're saying it, but the boss is also saying, yeah, no, but you know, I'm trying to do this. So I think there's a compromise in there, because also Jason Wilcox and Dan Answorth, those guys are watching this every single time United concede the dumbest goal. They've got their hands in their head, because they're like, come now, guys. And I know that there has to be some sort of a sense of, you know, compromise that's happening between manager and what everyone really thinks about the system at the end of the day. So I think it's up to him. Yeah, he knows what he needs to do. It's his sword to die on. We can't say the players are there that he wanted. He's got the pieces that are there over there and all of that. And now he has to dominate games. He has to. You can't have De Ligt, Mazraoui, Mainu, Ugarte, and not even try and dominate it. Any team that's 8th and bottom, you should be in control of games. So, and I think that's up to him now. We can't excuse it. In all fairness now, because you know, the players are too good. I've seen De Ligt dominate possession. I've seen it in Bayern. I've seen those things happen. I've seen these players do things as, you know, as a collective, you know, elsewhere. So I know now that he has to do it, you know. And I know we're hiding behind transition, but not when you have a back 4 like that. You can't. Not. Yeah.
Well, I think he'll transition to back 3, but that's a conversation for another day. Yeah. But I want to talk about balance, and I'll start with Marcus on this one, because there was a lot to respect Southampton for today in their approach play.
Yeah,
there's a lot to respect their manager for in their approach play, and there's a lot to respect Manchester United for in our approach and the way that we transform the game. But overall, I don't think we were brilliant today. Many people would look at it and think, well, but there's only so much where you can really improve over that dismal performance against Liverpool. So when you're looking at Liverpool to today, you're looking at night and day, aren't you? I get that. But when you're looking at it from a footballer, as we all are, as we all understand the game, as Jarvis and the lads in the comments all understand the game, you can almost be more critical. Because although you got to admire Ten Hag's stubbornness, sometimes you want to take him and shake him so bad and say, look, you know, just look at it from my eyes, and then you might be able to see it.
Yeah.
So you've both explained brilliantly and very articulately how the game panned out today. So I want to talk about our balance, and I want to talk about our lack of investment in a left back, not particularly because I want to have a pop at Dallo, But you saw an 18-year-old kid today with zero fear who absolutely wiped the floor with him for 25, 30 minutes. And if that kid had got a bit more about him, he was a bit more streetwise, he would have had Dallo on toast for the whole 90, 95 minutes of the game. Now, you're talking about a very talented footballer here in Dibbling, somebody who almost goes back to what I would call and class as old-fashioned wing play. Gets the ball. I'm not pissing about. I'm going to fucking have you, mate, and I'm going to go after you. And it's up to you to do what you can. So my question to both of you, and I'll start with Marcus, is our balance was okay to an extent until you look over to the left side and you've got Marcus Rashford, who doesn't specifically want to come back and maybe do the defensive side of the work. Amad, again, not brilliant. Garnacho, not brilliant. What do we do when you've got somebody who's maybe more streetwise than Dibbling, who's going to absolutely destroy Dallo this season? What's your thoughts on that one?
I think it's tough because I think, again, this is another completely baffling thing as to why we didn't sign a left back. It's one of the things, one of the great mysteries. And I'm not just talking about this transfer window. I mean, in general, because I know people will say, well, Ineos have done so much, so we can't really be too mad that they didn't sign another player on top of what they signed. I get that. I just mean in general, because we've needed a left back for a long time. Luke Shaw has not been reliable for a very, very long time. And despite having a season, I can't remember which season it was, I think maybe Ten Hag's first season and one of the seasons under Ollie where it looked like he was showing promising signs of staying fit. Those seasons don't change anything because we're back at square one now. He's just back to being in the medical room. So it's baffling. And I think the solution, honestly, is it's tricky to find for Ten Hag. I think what I always say about defending is it's very easy to focus on the last defender, and it's very easy to focus on Delo and look at his deficiencies and say that he's the problem.
That's what I want to avoid. I want to avoid singling him out. I don't particularly want to single him out, but I think it's a conversation, isn't it?
Yeah,
that has to be had.
Definitely, and I understand the point that you're making. I'm not saying that you are singling him out in any way, but it's like, as football fans, because I see it a lot online. I saw it with Casemiro against Liverpool, where people were blaming him for the goals. And it's like, guys, I get that he's the one who lost the ball, but it's like, why are we ending up in that situation to begin with? And then as soon as you ask just a couple of whys, you start to get a little bit deeper to the root cause of the problem. And I feel like it's kind of similar with Delo. Yes, there's going to be moments where it doesn't matter how good your system is, you're going to need a good defensive fullback, because no system is perfect, and eventually your winger is probably going to end up, or their winger is probably going to end up one-on-one with your fullback, and you want a fullback who can defend. We don't have that with Mazraoui and Delo. So Ten Hag has got to look at those two and say, okay, what I'm giving up in terms of defensively, I'm gaining in terms of technique on the ball. So now I need to make sure that my system on the ball is maximizing these players' strengths. And that's where the issue really lies for me.
Yeah.
If we don't lose the ball as much in the middle of the park and we don't lose the ball as much in the final third, then we don't have many turnovers. And if we don't have many turnovers, then the chances of someone like a Delo getting isolated to begin with is significantly lower. That's where I would start, is trying to make the team a lot more balanced on the ball. And then obviously you're not always going to have majority of the possession. You're going to come up against a Liverpool, you're going to come up against a City, etc. Then you've got to look at, okay, now how do I make sure that I set up my team to protect this deficiency? Because Klopp did it with Trent. He's the only manager who's taken a title off Pep. And according to a lot of people, Trent apparently can't defend. But he did it. And he knew that Trent probably had a lot of deficiencies defending-wise, but he set his team up in a way where they were defending really well from the front. And even if Trent did get caught off every now and then, they were able to minimize it. I think that's the approach that Ten Hag's got to take. I look at that midfield and I just think to myself, if it wasn't getting so overrun, Delo, Mazraoui, Maguire, and a lot of other players over the years wouldn't have been as exposed as they've been.
Yeah, no,
it's not like, yeah, I mean, unfortunately for Ten Hag, it's not like he can drop Delo, because who else are you going to play there? I mean, I don't think Martinez does a particularly great job at left back. I think he's been struggling. I can't remember which game. It might have been the Community Shield where he played at left back and he was just awful. So I I don't know if Martinez playing there is the answer. I don't think you want to bring Lindelof into the mix. So I don't know. He doesn't really have a better option but to play Delo there. And for the time being, he's just going to have to accept. Sometimes as a coach, you have a system. And I heard someone say something a couple of weeks ago, and it stuck with me since, right? A good system doesn't need world-class players, because if your system needs 11 world-class players, you don't have a system.
True.
You don't have a system. And so for Ten Hag, he's got to just focus on his system and say, okay, I know that this player can't do what I'm asking him defensively. It's fine. If we can see chances because of that, so be it. Like, my hands are tied. Let me focus on the other areas, and let me make sure the rest of my team is really solid, from defending from the front, defending in the middle. And then if the ball gets into that part of the pitch, we've done our best. It's okay. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Kai. What's your thoughts? And then perhaps you could both have a comment on Jarvis's brilliant question stroke suggestion, because he obviously a bit like you guys knows his stuff. But yeah, if you just talk about a bit about the balance, Kai, and then maybe answer Jarvis's question. And Marcus, come straight in if you don't mind with Jarvis's question as well.
All right, so I think actually my comment was a little bit in connection to Jarvis's question, but actually I think he covered it quite nicely there. But I think what he's talking about in terms of positional awareness of Daily Blind, I think that has a lot to do with game intelligence, right?
Yeah.
So there's something about people that just know where to be, and they know what sort of a solution they need for what sort of situation. And that's the same type of thing that you can see with Mazraoui, right? You can see that he knows where to run, he knows when to run. You can see he has enough legs to do the overlap when he needs to overlap. You can actually see the timing of the overlap is really good. It gets you just in the right areas. When he goes into a tackle, you can see the choice of tackle is also correct. And when the players are moving, and actually sometimes I'm really impressed by his technical level in how he maneuvers the ball and makes that pass. Sometimes I feel like it doesn't look like he's a smooth player, but his actions are actually pretty smooth as far as that goes. So I think that game intelligence that he brings on the right-hand side has all of a sudden made our right-hand side a lot better than what we have on our left-hand side. Because the truth is as well, Dalot, for everything he's got, I don't know how I can explain Dalot. I feel like if he's if you have to look like at his attributes of football, I think they would all be the same, just like that. Every one of them would be a 7 or 6.5 or something just like that. And I think that he is just good enough to be in the team, but I do think that there's certain things which he lacks for you to take the next step forward in the way that you want to take it. So essentially, I think the game intelligence, for example, when he has to defend some of these players, it's exactly the same problem with Rashford. Where's the game intelligence to say, I need to tuck in over here? So there is a big disconnect between the willpower and the game intelligence needed to do it, and the energy needed to do it. And there's something in there. And if you look at, for example, Mazraoui, he will show you all of those layers a little bit. He'll show you the energy to do it. He'll show you the idea that he's trying. He'll show you the intelligence that is needed to be in a certain position. And I think when we're talking about Aaron Wan-Bissaka, we used to talk about certain things. And I think the next step for Wan-Bissaka was always the problem, not what he's doing currently. He's dribbling currently. He's doing well currently. But there is the next step of whatever is needed in that system, in which he then does either the suboptimal decision or he loses the ball or something. So I think that's why our right-hand side is also slightly better. And I do think we do need a left back, because Luke Shaw, guys, for the injuries he's got, I still don't think he's that good, lads. I'm telling you now, guys. I've watched so many left backs which terrorize oppositions, and I think Luke Shaw has a very high level of things that he can do. Ball retention is good, all of that, but he's not a good overlapper because he doesn't do it often enough. The energy versus the amount of times he does, it's very little. he doesn't provide a lot of threat for the in the final area. Yes, sometimes he provides an assist, but he's just not a consistent threat. I don't think he is the level in which that we've shown so much loyalty that we've decided to sign nobody. I mean, we signed Amrabat like on the transfer deadline day, and then we decided to play him left back right after that. Like,
Yeah.
What's going on? So, so I think we have needed somebody in there who is this, I don't know, a left back, right? And I don't think there's many of them, but I do think you can see there is a difference in that. Sorry, Stu, you were.
No, I think you're right, and I think what you've answered is exactly how I felt, and I'm going to get Marcus's point again. I was asked about Mazouari about 6 weeks ago. What type of player is he like? I said I didn't know anything about the kid. Couldn't tell you. I didn't want to go onto YouTube, see a 30-second flash of him and make a decision. But what I noticed about him, and it kind of really backs up what you were talking about, and I explained this to somebody a few weeks ago, and they looked at me as if I was daft. And I said, Mazouari is the type of player, he's what you call a professional footballer. And they looked at me and said, well, yeah, obviously. I said, no. I said, you're not getting me. You're missing my... What's your point then? I said, you could put that guy in South Africa on a crappy pitch. You could put him at Wembley. You could put him at the Ajax Arena. You could put him on any pitch on the planet, and he will deliver 75 to 85% week in, week out. And that's the only way I can explain the guy. He is what Marcus sums up as, he is not world-class, although I don't agree with the phrase world-class, as you pair know. He is not elite, but he is a player that will play to a system at the very, very, very best of his ability. Phenomenal talent, really, when you think about it. We've not seen that in the Manchester United shirt since possibly Bruno coming in back in 2019. Perhaps. So very, very interesting. Yeah, Marcus, just following on Jarvis's question, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Mazraoui has been a sensation, and I can't stop thinking about his price tag. Every time I watch him play, I'm like, wow, what a bargain. You summed him up perfectly. I think professional is the best way to describe him. Sometimes we watch plays for Manchester United and we wonder, I'm sure you guys have wondered this about many players over the last decade. Like, how are you getting paid? Like what? Like, forget the system, forget the Glazers, forget everything, forget all the wider context. Like, but how do you make that decision in that particular match? And obviously, it's not as simple as players just being bad. I mean, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances, and players are human; they make mistakes. But he looks like a professional. He looks like he's got the right mentality. He looks like the type of player who just needs a system, and he needs to be told what to do, and he'll do it to the best of his ability. And that's exactly what Manchester United need. I think for a long time now, especially, I remember during the Woodward days, Manchester United fans have been crying out for signings like this. We don't want to go for the big name who's past their best and comes with all the clout and all, basically the marketing signings, if I can call them that. This is the type of signing we needed. Someone that's low-key. That's funny. someone that's low-key, a good piece of business, not really much pressure coming into Old Trafford. He's shocked a lot of people's expectations, and that's the type of signings we should be making. And he also solves a big problem in the team, because players like that can bail you out of trouble so often. And because he does it so much, people will start to take it for granted. But the amount of times we've been put in compromising positions because we couldn't play out from the back, or because we couldn't beat a press, or because a player successful pass, but they actually put their teammate in a really dangerous position because they passed it to someone who has 3 opposition shirts around him, and now suddenly that person's in trouble. The ability to play yourself out of trouble is so underrated, especially in the position that Mazraoui plays in, because if he loses the ball, we're probably in trouble, because most of the time when he's receiving the ball, he's going to be in our own half. So yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And I remember having these arguments with people when it came to Wan-Bissaka. I am not disputing what Wan-Bissaka brings defensively, but unfortunately, in the modern game, especially if you're talking about a manager like Ten Hag, you need that technique, especially with Ten Hag. What I've noticed about him is he wants to give his players freedom, and he relies a lot on his players' ability, as opposed to being a manager who has a very specific system that, you do this, you do this. No, he wants you to be able to kind of do it all, really. That's what I've noticed about Ten Hag, even with the way he uses Casemiro. Like, he's basically asking Casemiro to hold the midfield by himself, win the ball, break up the play, and then distribute quickly on the counter. And it's like, bro, where is the evidence that Casemiro can do this in his career? Like, what? Why would you ask him to do that? And I feel like Mazraoui is one of the few players that Ten Hag can get away with that, when it comes to him, because he actually has so much in his locker that he can offer. So it's a genius signing, man. And yeah, it's one of the few signings that have been made under Ten Hag that is seeming like not only just a bargain, but a brilliant piece of business.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
And Stu, can I just add quickly about Mazraoui? The funny thing is, I always was having an argument with United fans who thought that we had players in the squad which were good enough, and I always used to say, but good enough does not mean that sometimes does something in some games. Good enough basically means that you can be trusted in any area of the pitch to do the right thing. And that is, like you're saying, the one thing that just lacks. And that's why I love Real Madrid as always the example for someone that United compares himself, because the clubs are like that sort of a, similar thing.
Yeah.
And if you look at Madrid, you just notice something. Someone like, what's his name? Dani Carvajal. You're not telling me that he is special in this, but he is a special player because
the difference.
The package. Exactly.
Reliable.
That package of, okay, what is needed now? How can I do now? Can I get the tackle in now? Can I go up now? And can I find myself hitting the winner in an important game? The fact that he always finds himself in those situations in a group of stars, and he always finds himself as the guy who is ending up, and he's the shortest guy in the world. You see what I mean? Club and country. It means that you don't need, like you're saying, a lot of world-class players to have a very good team, but you definitely need players which aren't going to let you down more often than not. Especially especially in a game situation where you're just like, okay, but why are you passing over there? Okay, but can you not see that guy is running there and you're shouting, Rashford, run, but he's just jogging, but you just know you're going to concede. Like, you're going to concede half the time because you're like, yeah, well, I can see the area there. He didn't do his job. Okay, there's the cross. Okay, cut back, goal. And you're just like, well, why didn't anyone do anything? Yeah, because there's just some players just don't do certain things quick enough, and they just don't do it right. And that's why I like someone like Mazraoui, because if we can build on players which are just able to just provide an effortless game sometimes amongst all the stars, let all the stars do the thing, but just provide a good game sometimes. 7.5, 5 games in a row, nobody asks a question, and you will be part of a successful side like that. That is one of the elements that we need,
But that's where people don't understand football, don't understand the game. You could ask. I mean, look, I don't know how old your team is, Kai, but you can ask a bunch of under 8s, what's it like to be a footballer? What is a footballer? And they'll give you the standard stock answer rather than brains. Football's all about brains. Everything you do in your life is about brains. Your brain tells your body what to do. It tells you how to get there. It tells you how to pick things up. It's all about brain signals, eyes and ears. And this is what football is. And people talk about how great Zidane was. Yeah, he was brilliant. How great Georgie Best was. He was brilliant. How great Franz Beckenbauer was. Absolutely brilliant, in their positions and how they executed the game, understood the game. But it was about being able to read the game and instinct and acting in a split second to where the game is traveling. We over the last 10 years, we haven't had enough of those players that can do that. We've maybe had one or two, over the 10 seasons. We've got one or two at this point in time. I think Ligt will add a third. Eventually, I want to talk to you about Ligt now. It's a little bit too soon to talk about Agate today because, well, it was just difficult. I felt for him, to be honest. It was a bit of a no man's performance, wasn't it, from Agate? But I mean, what was he expected to do? From that, we'll see if he maybe gets a start on Tuesday. Perhaps I think it would make a bit of sense if he doesn't get injured, plays about a half at least. So I want to move on to Ligt because we talk about Mazzari, and Ligt had this issue in an international break. People are saying he wasn't fit enough at Bayern Munich, but when you looked at his Bayern Munich stats, he was probably the most one of the most consistent defenders when he played. And then people are making a big thing that he was ousted by Eric Dyer. He just, for whatever reason. Now I looked at Ligt today, and I saw something. I'm a centre half, and I watched his positional play. I watched where, what he was doing. He was looking around, heads always on a swivel. He looked to me like a Ligt I remember back in Ajax. Not fully anywhere near that Ligt, but there was something about him that maybe shored us up a little bit. And so I wanted to ask you about that and whether or not we bought character first and foremost with Ligt, or have we bought a player and then a character?
I actually would say it's character first. I think the thing with Ligt that what I like about the signing a lot, again, similar to Mazraoui, is we're not signing this world-class big name. I mean, you could argue that Ligt's a big name, but I don't think he is anymore. I think when Juve signed him, yes. When Juve signed him, yes, because they signed him for big money. When Bayern signed him, he still had that aura, like, oh, it's the Ligt from Ajax. But after you have two big moves and there's a lot of debate about whether or not it worked out, I don't think he's that guy anymore. I think Manchester United is an opportunity for him to reset. I think it makes sense for both parties. And I think, from his point of view, actually, this is a really, really good move because it's not big money this time in terms of the transfer fee. And he's coming into a rebuild, so he's not going to be expected to change everything overnight. Any sensible person will say, yeah, I mean, Manchester United are signing a lot of new players. They're going in a new direction, blah, 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 right? He has a lot of time in the bank, if you will. On top of that, he's coming into a situation where there isn't really, in terms of players similar to his quality, there just isn't that much going on at United, right? You've got Lindelof, Maguire, Martinez. That's pretty much it, and you're definitely going to start ahead of at least two of those. So he's coming to Manchester United at the right time, and this is brilliant for him. And for us, it's great because we're getting something that we didn't really have in abundance. We're getting somebody who has the right sort of character, who I think is just a steady head, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a very positive thing. I think even when he's not playing well, even when he does make mistakes, he still fills me with a lot more confidence than some of the defenders we've seen play at Old Trafford over the last few years. So I would definitely say character first. But even on the ball, just secure, reliable. The fact that he scored a header today as well was just like the cherry on the proverbial cake. It was a beautiful cross from Bruno, but the header was very, very impressive for me. And having a defender who can score, hopefully he scores more, hopefully I'm not jinxing him, but having a defender who can score from corners is huge. We need that. That's going to give us a few points in the season. And who knows what those points, how valuable they could be. That could be the difference between getting into Europe and not getting into Europe sometimes, when you're away from home against a bottom of the half table team and you need a goal and you've got a set piece, maybe you didn't even deserve it. Having someone like Ligt there is huge, So I think it's a great signing, man. And again, he's not somebody that I would have been talking about, but that's what I want my club to do. I want my club to sign players, and I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think we were going to go for that. And then I see them play, and I'm like, you know what? Actually, this is exceeding my expectations, similar to Mazraoui. So yeah, I can't say anything negative about Ligt at the moment. And the stuff about him performing badly on international duty, man. Yeah, so what? He had one bad game for the Netherlands. Boo-hoo, who cares?
Who hasn't? Who hasn't? Kai, you've seen a lot of Ligt, haven't you, being based out there? What's your thoughts on his kind of trajectory, really, and him landing at Manchester United, and what do you think we can benefit or not benefit from him?
So here's the funny thing. I only started rating Ligt the moment he put on a Man United jersey.
Oh, okay.
Um, you see, I got this thing which I do when I don't rate a signing, or I just don't. I literally will just not look into them. I'll just let them come to the club and do whatever they do. I will not even try and find highlights. I will not even try to find it. I mean, I come from the days of. Do you remember when Gabby Orbitan? That was when YouTube had just started.
Yes.
And we signed him, and I remember searching for him, and I think he was wearing Thierry Henry's 14 shirt at the club he was at. I think it was Bordeaux. I don't remember which club he was at. And he looked like Henry. He was doing things, and he was putting top corner. And then I was superbly disappointed. So yeah, so I just know that new signings, like, anyways, De Ligt I didn't rate because of the fact that I thought that it was a little bit too much, right? So Ajax, you're 19, you're captain, and then all of a sudden you're the greatest center back that ever lived. Exactly. Especially when center back is a position that you know that you need to learn a lot. So you don't just get good at 16, 17, 18, 19, because there's actually a lot of experience, a lot of situational things that you have to face in order for you to really be very good in that position. And I didn't think that De Ligt had done that yet. And I thought that going to Juventus, he was never going to play. And when he did play, I just thought that his style was just so different from Ajax. But apparently he also did it so he could grow, right? So that he could learn how to defend in a very rigid way. And I think Juve is a big club, so I do think, in terms of a career move, it makes sense. I see what he was trying to do over there. But I was always concerned by his pace. I was always concerned about, if he can run fast. And then I realized, actually, when he signed for United, I just started watching a few things. And I was like, okay, the one thing that he's got is he's got the dog in him. He is very, very aggressive in how he defends. So he's not a little 50-50 tackle over there, whatever, which is something which I really hate by like someone like Lindelof, right? I would rather De Ligt over Lindelof any day, just because there's no pussyfooting around, right? There's no, okay, this guy is coming through. What am I going to do? It's just straight up a lot of power, and he's a big lad. He's super tall, and he's actually a lot more mobile than you think. I just think, of course, he might need to tone down a little bit so that he could, he could move his hips like he could. But I think, like Marcus said, one massive thing, like you were saying, the set pieces. We can never stress how much big teams live off the 1-0 off a set piece. They live off that. There's a set piece taker who's super good. It's normally the 10 or whatever, and he whips it in, and they have a great center back who is super aggressive as well. He's not afraid of flying into those headers. And unfortunately for Martinez, our floor really decreases, because although he's aggressive, being aggressive while you're attacking the ball in the air is also something very different. It's a weird thing. So I think having someone who can score when it's 0-0, like, we need to score set pieces, because it's a game breaker. Like Marcus said, you don't deserve it, you scored. You do deserve it, you scored. You just need something to go off somebody so that you're 1-0 up, and then the game state changes when you're 1-0 up versus when it's 0-0 or when it's the nerves. Then at least you know that when it's a corner, someone will be stressed out. But a lot of teams are not stressed out about what our movements are, whatever. The corner just comes in, it's either flat or it's just normal, and then they just head it out, and then we just continue this thing like it never happened. But I think what we need to do actually is to be dangerous at the corners. They come in, they fly in, the keeper's got to make a save. Xerxes over there to punish a tap in. The corner comes in. I believe we need to make more of the set pieces instead of just scoring them like Casemiro once in a while. The corners, we just need to put some pressure in there, and I think De Ligt is also quite useful in terms of that.
I think he scores 5 goals for us this season. His movement actually on the cross. I mean, the cross was very, very good. But when you float a ball in like that, you have to put the power in yourself. You've got to be able to direct and put the power in. And when the commentators were talking about how he directed it from the outside and it kind of swerved in, you never do that with a head. I find it amazing that commentators and ex-pros talk about how we direct it. You don't. You use a certain part of your head. And what was clever about that particular goal was that he used the side of it. So he used this part of his head rather than this part of his head. If he goes with this part of his head, it's going pretty much back where it came from, if that makes sense, trajectory-wise. He's going well wide the post. So you have to almost turn your head to get it in. And it was a wonderful header. But what I like about him, and, and I'm a centre-half anyway, and he obviously, after his issues in Germany, did phone me up for advice. And I said, well, look, I'll send you my playbook out. So next time you take the pitch, you know what you're doing. But now what I actually like about him, he never panics in and around the area, either our area or their area. And he doesn't panic if he's on a one-on-one. He's quite happy to wrestle, or he's quite happy to back off 2 yards. And that's what makes a really good centre-half. Being able to understand the type of forward you're playing against, being able to understand whether he's nippy, whether he's strong. Does he want to fight you all the time? If he does want to fight you, I'm not getting involved. Because if he wants to fight you, he's going to elbow you and it's going to be awkward. So you don't get involved. So he's then got to look around to see where you are. Little things like that, he does really, really well. So I think it's a great signing for us, actually. But I think, and I'd love to get you two on again. I'm going to have word with King. We'll do a tactics show maybe in a few weeks because I think with the acquisition of Yoro, Ligt, and Martinez, I can see a different setup, a different way of playing. Or if he doesn't want to go for that setup, I can see us at least going with two sides. Or two ways of being able to play against different teams. So I think we've got ourselves into a really good situation. I really do.
Stu, can I just say, I actually was thinking about something I forgot, and I said to myself, I was discussing it on the way back from the game this afternoon, and I was saying that it's weird because set pieces, because I also talk about it with my team, that we got to score more set pieces. It's weird because Arsenal, right, score a lot of set pieces to win a lot of games or to open up a lot of games, and they play the games with like 5 center backs, and it's not like they score gluts of goals every single time, but they win their games by scoring very essential type of goals that are needed sometimes, and I think, can you imagine how crazy the image changes if you don't score those type of goals and then you don't win the games like we do. So I think it really is a thing. I think maybe these set piece coaches, I don't know, I think it's a bit overrated anyways.
I don't buy into them.
I say put in a good delivery like James Rodriguez, like Colombia, and then get 2 7-foot tall center backs like Colombia, and they're gonna head it in half the time. Just put the ball in nicely. I don't know what you guys think, but I always never knew, who is it? Is it, especially corners, is it the guy delivering that needs to be on point, or is it the guy attacking the ball that needs to be good, or is it the defender that needs to be bad? What is it with the corner? Because some teams score a lot, some teams just can't. We couldn't score a corner, but other teams just seem to throw the ball in the box, goal. Ball in the box, goal.
People talk about delivery all the time. Now you think about it, okay? If you're kind of hybrid, say you've got, there's 3 types of ways you can mark off a corner, right? There's hybrid, that's almost zonal, but within a closer proximity to the man that you're supposedly marking. Okay, the zonal, where you're just marking the zone and you're allowing the attacker 2 to 3 yards at least on you to get the power in there, so. And then there's man marking, where you're wrestling and you're doing all that. So from a corner taker, right, all you're doing is lobbing into an area, wherever that area is. Now, actually, the sweet spot in a corner is the penalty spot, and that's for a reason, because it gives the attacker plenty of time and opportunity and space to be able to try and guide his header into a more of an open spot. It gives the defender more of a chance to kind of wrestle the attacker outside of the box if you want to, if you're really pushing him shoulder or that. Or it should allow the keeper, which doesn't happen, Kai and Marcus, and I know you're going to tell me that, to come out and command his 6-yard box, because that never fucking happens anymore, does it? Never comes out, and so the keeper should be coming in and elbow. So for the actual corner taker, that's where you've got to aim it for. The rest is, and I'm going to say this, it's a fucking lottery. It really is. It's an absolute lottery, because if you're a defender and you're marking somebody in your goal side, which you should be, and you're trying to, hold the guy's shirt just here, right at the very bottom, so you're trying to stop his movement. You're then pushing your left leg, if you can, against his right leg, and you're doing that to stop any kind of momentum that he's going to try and gain off you. That's just basic defending, fellas. That really is. That's just basic defending. Now, what he's trying to do as an attacker is do the same for you, but he's going to try and lift off of you to get above you. So he's going to try and grab your shorts and your shirt to try and elevate himself off. You watch their arms will go massively tight sometimes. That's because they're trying to get the elevation. And that's where you get all this fighting and all this kind of jostling. The real bad defenders and real smart attackers, they use the 1 inch, 2 inches they can to get across straight away, and they tend to use the flight of the ball. So it's not when he kicks the ball, you don't instantly move, because you'll be in an area where the ball's going to float over you. You've got to almost wait for the ball to rise from about 2 or 3 yards before you make your move to try and get your timing right. So,
but it's true. There's always a random relegation club, like one of them with like superb set piece record.
Yeah.
How do they come up? Because I'm still like, if you plan to defend, if you said I'm zonal, or if you said I'm man to man, or if you said I got one person on the post, another person on the post, there's always just a guy that wraps his foot around it consistently every time. And then the same player, like Soucek. There was a time Soucek was just coming in head. Yeah. And sometimes I'm thinking, it's crazy. Is it luck? Because now he's not doing it as often, right? But yeah.
I feel like there's always an element of luck. Of course there is, with the timing and everything. But I think a lot of it comes down to concentration, because I think about United and the amount of goals we've conceded from set pieces late on in the game. That's not a coincidence, and that's not bad luck. That's just poor concentration, So I think concentration is a big part of it. And it's one of those things that's really underrated, because you see it. How many times have you sat on a show, whether it's a live stream or with your friends before you started doing the YouTube stuff, and it doesn't matter who was playing, it doesn't matter what the context was, but something happened and you're asking yourself, why was there no one on the back post? Why was there no one in this position? Why was there no, or even small things like, I know you can correct me if I'm wrong, Stu, but I don't know if you're a believer in this, but personally, I don't believe you make subs, but like just before a corner. I feel like that just ruins everything. If you're going to make a sub, wait till after the corner.
We'll never do that.
Exactly. Small things like that. It's just like, don't do it.
Ideally, though, Marcus and Kai, you want your goalkeeper organising you. You want your goalkeeper, because your goalkeeper. There's two things really. Your goalkeeper should be, first of all, studying. How Liverpool, for example, how do they set up for a corner in the attacking sense? Who goes where? Who goes, as you quite rightly said, Marcus, front post? Who goes near post? Who runs from deep to try and get in round the back? And then the goalkeeper, he should be kind of, whichever side the corner's go, he should be kind of standing diagonally. Which sounds daft, I know, rather than straight looking at it, stand diagonally, so he can make his decision and watch the flight of the ball. But then he should be then saying, watch out for Firmino, he always goes to the back or whatever. We don't communicate at corners. We're really quiet on corners all the time.
Are goalkeepers on average shorter these days? I don't know. I'm just trying to think to myself because
no, I think they are. What's Onana 6 foot? 6'1" maybe?
Yeah, because the easiest thing, because goalkeepers use hands, right? And that was the advantage back in the day, that a goalkeeper would do the stretch, and when you do the stretch, they are way taller than you all of a sudden, and they collect the ball in the air, and it's a foul because then they absorb the contact on the side or whatever. And what I find these days is the keepers won't even try sometimes to come out. All it is a punch, but sometimes they're just like, nah, look,
You know why?
I'm going to stay on my line over here.
You know why they won't come out anymore? Because when you're talking about, and what you're talking about is absolutely brilliant. And guys, again, you know, you should listen to these two because they know what they're talking about. If I'm a defender and I'm goal side of, so I'm here, I'm Harry Kane, I'm goal side of it, all Onana's got to come and do is tackle me. Because if he tackles me, he's not committing a foul.
Yeah.
By letter of the law. Because all he's doing is coming in, tackling me, and he's moving me out of the way. And by consequence, I'm moving Harry Kane out of the way. Okay. But they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw a goalkeeper take out his own defender?
That's so true, actually.
Yeah, that is actually really true. Yeah,
it doesn't happen anymore. And Harry Kane's sprawling around on the floor. I'm on top of him, dropping a couple of elbows in as well.
People's elbow.
Grappling for the ball, gets the ball, he gets up and he carries on with the throw. That doesn't happen in the modern game anymore. Yeah. And people
but if go check out Oblak and Thibaut Courtois. Funny enough, that they're the closest to people that are coming to collect the ball nice and easy, but also they are very tall. They're also like freaking 6'6", 6'7" or something. I don't know, but they are massive. So I feel like there's that confidence that comes also with the fact that all the keepers look kind of like Pickford size, like
scared.
You know, they're kind of they're kind of like, you know, fancy looking yellow boots keepers. I'm just like, why you got yellow boots on as a keeper? You need to wear that. that black Puma, exactly. That Copa Mundial, you know, I don't want to see any fancy things, but now we see it often.
All the time,
and it's funny because
short sleeve,
if we see, if we see the like we're saying, these are like the tall keepers, but if you want to then see a version of maybe he's also tall, but I think he's on the slightly lower than tall Alisson. Then you see goalkeeping basic, like everything in the tool package, you know, like he's got absolutely every attribute needed. Then you see what a goalkeeper who isn't 7 foot tall actually should be like, because he's also fearless. He comes to collect, he comes right at you, he smashes into guys, you know, he wins a lot of free kicks in the box just by, you know, absorbing the contact on purpose. Like he knows it's coming. You can actually see him looking, and then the ball's coming in the air, and as he's going, touch, bang, free kick type of a thing. So I think there's a lot of, he's a very good goalkeeper. I think Liverpool were very lucky there. I don't know how they did that, but as a full-on goalkeeper. And then we decided to go and buy, in our banter era, people, we decided to go and buy one of the most experimental goalkeepers of all time. Why did we need the experiment now? Okay, in this era, like we could have waited. We could have waited, but now it's like now we have to have this dude for the next 4 or 5 years, and it's going to be like this consistently. We're going to see clangers
on the wrong side of the goal.
He's going to be standing on the wrong side of the goal. It's going to be so many things. I can't believe this was the era. Why couldn't we just get like someone like bland, like Oblak?
This is
bland.
So this has come full circle, because when you asked me at the top of the show about my thoughts on Erik ten Hag, I actually forgot to answer the question, and this is coming full circle now, because the players that Ten Hag has recruited versus the style of play that he's trying to play, this heavily transition-based football, confuses me, because he signed Onana, a ball-playing keeper. He signed Martinez, who you can debate whether he's a ball-playing centre-back. I think is quite decent on the ball. Ligt, you can throw in there as well. Mazraoui, very technical. He didn't sign Delo, but he likes Delo, and Delo is, you know, a lot more technical than someone like Wan-Bissaka, who he chose to let go. Then you get to the midfield, questionable whether Amrabat and Sabitzer and Mount all fit that, but, you know, I think you can count them in. You've got players like Xerxes and Højlund, who are not known for their goal scoring, but are rather known for their hold-up and the technical side. He's got a player like Amad now, who he's starting regularly. And I just think to myself, so you got all these players who have the capability to retain possession, and yet you're asking them to quickly transition every time they get the ball. Why? Especially when you don't have a specialist number 6 or a specialist midfielder in deep positions who can distribute the ball safely and reliably more often than not, so that this tactic of playing on transition is actually effective. It's like, you know, I'm so confused by it. And that's one of the things I don't understand about Ten Hag. And that's why I'm starting to believe that he's not as meticulous and as obsessive as some people think. I think actually Ten Hag is quite a simple manager, and he really does just trust his players. And the problem is, when you trust your players, if you don't have really good players, that's not going to work. If you don't have the players to play the system that you want, you need to hold their hand. You need to do what Louis van Gaal did. He had Chris Smalling playing out from the back. How? Like, he did that because he was drilling them every week in training. And he's like, no, I want you to do this. And if you don't do this, you're not starting. I have this very specific task for you. Don't worry about the other 10 guys on the pitch. This is your job, and I want you to do it. The same way, this is a random example, but Sterling at Man City. I think Sterling at Man City, the reason why he was able to work is because he had a very specific task to perform in that team, and he didn't have to worry about anything else. Whereas when he went to Chelsea, it was a different story. The chaos, he completely drowned in the chaos like many other attackers have been there. I think the same thing's happening at United. I think there's a lot of players at United who quite rightly can be blamed and need to take some accountability for their own performance, but they're not being helped by the fact that they've got a person who's asking them to do something that they just can't do. It's like asking a fish to climb a tree. No matter how much you yell at it to climb up the tree, it's just not going to do it. So you need to make a decision. It's like, okay, well, if I'm going to keep my job, I better play to the fish's strengths and get it back in the water. It really, really does boil down to that. And by the way, I'm not saying this fixes everything, but I am saying that it would get fans like me on side. If I could see what Erik ten Hag was trying to do and I believed in it, even if the results weren't there, I would still back him, because I'd be like, I can see the vision. With him, it's like his vision versus the players that he has, it contradicts each other. And it's just, it's not working. So, and Annan is the perfect example. Like, this guy's a ball playing keeper, but I see him boot the ball 60 yards every game. It's like, what's going on? So why didn't we just keep De Gea then? If he was going to do it anyways,
Yeah.
So, and I don't think he's a bad manager. That's the funny thing, because you don't just become a bad manager, right? Like, you don't just randomly. It's a weird thing. That's why I'm kind of in the middle. I'm like, bro, please don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass Marcus. Please don't embarrass Stu, bro. Like,
I think I think he's going to go on to have a great career. I think Erik ten Hag still has the potential to have a really good career, but I don't quite know if it's going to be at United if he continues down this pathway. Because I think there's two types of managers. There's managers who just trust their players and are more on the vibe side of things, and then there's managers who like to micromanage. And I think when you have a squad that's just not good enough and you can't trust the players, then you have to lean more towards babysitting them and holding their hands. That's the only way. What else are you going to do? You can't ask them to save your job, because they're not going to. So it's I think if he was at a bigger club, not a bigger club, but a club that was in a better position, pardon me, if he was at an Arsenal or a City, I think Ten Hag would actually be doing really well, because he'd have the quality that he needs to just say, this is what I want you to do. This is a broad idea, but you guys are professionals. Figure it out on yourself.
It'll be interesting to see where we go. Yeah,
he's got the type of he's got the type of personality, Ten Hag, which needs success, or else it all looks weird, right? He's got the bravado that needs success. Like, that's why he keeps talking to trophies. I promise you, if Ten Hag wins a Premier League, you will not hear that. You will not stop him right from that point.
Well, let's hope he does win the Premier League. Gents, we've gone over the hour, so we'll have to wrap it up, I'm afraid. Everybody who's been in the comments has been watching. Brilliant comments, as always. Thanks, Trev. Thanks, Jarvis, and amongst others. It's not been that much of a reaction today. We've been speaking about football in general, which is, I always think, a better conversation. And when you've got two brains like Marcus and Kai, it makes it very, very easy to talk about the games. Guys, thank you ever so much. It's been a pleasure, as always, chatting to you. Marcus, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and on YouTube. You can just search that name. And my handle is exactly the same, except there's an X where the I is, because Triple M is taken on most platforms. So there you go.
Lovely. And Marcus, where can people? Marcus, bloody hell, Kai, where can people find you, pal?
Do we look alike, Stu?
No,
be careful with the answers, Stu. You're on tape.
I know.
You're gonna get
He's going to get me in trouble at this rate, isn't he, Marcus?
Yeah.
No,
Guys, where can people find you, old friend?
You can find me. It says over there, Kaya _ goes on X, so you can find me there.
Lovely, and you can abuse me at Stu Woolley if you wish. Guys, it's been a brilliant show as always. I'm going to try and find the outro and loop us out. Thank you all for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.